Hello, and welcome to the Spiffin Gryphon Podcast. I'm your host, Orion. Today I'm talking about a touchy subject, the rate of suicide in trans people. If you are sensitive to issues of transphobia, homophobia, suicide or suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, self-harm, or eating disorders, and believe you may have a hard time listening to this, I recommend sitting this one out. Glad to have had you here for the introduction. No hard feelings, and enjoy your day. Content warning aside, the subject is particularly close to home. I'm a trans person myself, assigned female at birth, but I kept neither my birth name nor my pronouns. I've also dealt with suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, and pretty much everything else I mentioned in the content warning. According to the Public Religion Research Institute, a nonprofit and nonpartisan research organization, in April 2019, according to their survey, an average of 55% of Americans believe that gender is a binary, and 45% believe that law should require trans people to use a bathroom that corresponds with the gender they were assigned at birth. This belief can have a negative impact on trans people such as myself. The American Psychology Association states that sex is assigned at birth refers to one's biological status as either male or female, and is associated with chromosomes, hormones, and anatomy. Gender refers to socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes society considers appropriate. In summary, gender and sex are different. Sex is genitals and hormones, and gender is behaviors, presentations, and labels. Different societies have different things they consider masculine, feminine, or androgynous, so gender is a social construct. According to what we know by Cornell University, based on 51 studies, and I'm paraphrasing here, gender transition is effective in treating gender dysphoria and improves well-being in those who obtain treatment. I should clarify what gender dysphoria is for the uninitiated. Gender dysphoria is the discomfort or distress one feels when their body does not align with their gender. It can also be felt when someone calls a trans person by the wrong name or pronouns. It can feel uncomfortable, like a husband waiting for his wife outside of Victoria's Secret, or it can feel like you want to rip your skin off every time you see yourself in the mirror. You have an image of yourself that never seems to match up with the image you have, like your body is not your body but someone else's, and it's insufferable. But transition helps alleviate this awful feeling. Cornell goes on to say that transition helps improve quality of life, relationship satisfaction, and self-esteem, while reducing anxiety, depression, suicidality, and substance use. So transitioning definitely works for those with gender dysphoria. This is not just surgery and hormones, what's called medical transition, but also your peers using your name and pronouns and presenting like you want to. This is called social transitioning. Before we move on, I'd like to take a moment to promote an organization I really admire, the Trans Journalists Association. The TJA is a volunteer-run organization that supports trans journalists in their careers through community support and guidance. They have many helpful resources on their website, such as their comprehensive style guide at transjournalists.org. Journalists is plural, no dashes. If you're a trans journalist, you can apply for membership at transjournalist.org/join. Now, back to the content. Both the American Psychological Association and the National Center for Biotechnology Information affirm that external pressure from being a minority group impacts mental health in a negative way. The APA states that many transgender and gender-diverse children and adolescents experience elevated rates of depression, anxiety, self-harm, and other health risk behaviors, as well as low self-esteem, substance abuse, homelessness, and eating disorders, and cite minority stress as a primary mechanism and a notable burden on a minority person's physical and mental health. The NCBI goes on to state that trans suicide rates range from 32% to 50% across countries, which is significantly higher than their cisgender counterparts. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel. See, interpersonal support lowers the rate of trans suicidality exponentially. TransPulse did a survey of 433 trans people between 16 to 24 regarding parental support of their trans identities and various factors, one being mental health. Out of the sample group, 57 of the people surveyed who had attempted suicide did not have supportive parents, compared to only 4 participants that did. And lastly, while not being academically backed, unlike the previous sources, I feel as if my opinion matters here. As I've stated, hi, I'm Orion, I'm non-binary, and I go by he/they pronouns. I've lived in my current town for 4 years, and I would consider it a moderately progressive place as all things go. However, before I lived here, I lived in a small town in rural Mississippi. My mental health then was far worse than it is now, and I count a good amount of that being because of what was deemed acceptable for me to be. I had to live as a cis straight woman the entire time there for fear of ridicule. Even making this podcast would be unthinkable. Yet, here I am with an incredibly accepting friend group, my parents coming around to accepting me, and making content that deeply matters to me. I don't think I can ever go back to that town and be that cis woman again, because being myself feels too good. And with that, I'll leave you with a quote by Juno Dawson, trans actress and writer. Remember this: whoever you are, however you are equally valid, equally justified, and equally beautiful. That has been the Spiffin Gryphon Podcast. Hope you learned something useful. Epic intro and outro music made by Crow Wander. Find them on Spotify and SoundCloud. Excellent script editing by the lovely Megan Sullivan, Anya Mother, and Justin Lugo. Thanks for your support. I've been your host, Orion. Do something nice today.